Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Prabhupada ki jai. So, we are continuing with our reading from the Sri Caitanya-caritamrta. We're still in the chapter called Liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Tabe Bhattacharya kahe yahagos sanirastane Amara name kana sahita kara limantrane. After hearing this from Gopinathacharya, Sarva, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, first go to the place where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is staying and invite him here with his associates. Ask him on my account. I guess I have to read what was before that, huh? Okay, verse before that. We're on. The exact verse before that was 109 in chapter 6 of Madhya Lila. So, and there's a purport. So we read the purport too from last week. In almost all cases, whatever learned brahmanas speak becomes accepted. Nothing is impossible for one who takes shelter of my illusory energy and speaks under her influence. Purport. In this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 22nd chapter, 4th verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead explains that his illusory energy can perform the impossible. Such is the power of the illusory energy. In many cases, philosophical speculators have covered the real truth and have boldly set forth false theories. In ancient times, philosophers like Kapila, Gotama, Jaimini, Kanada, and similar brahmanas propounded useless philosophical theories. And in modern days, so-called scientists are setting forth many false theories about creation, backed up by seemingly logical arguments. This is all due to the influence of the Supreme Lord's illusory energy. The illusory energy, therefore, sometimes appears correct because it is emanating from the Supreme Correct. To avoid the very bewildering illusory influence, one must accept the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as they are. Only then can one escape the influence of the illusory energy. That was from last week. But then following from that, Tabe Bhattacharya kahe yaha gosani rastane amara name gana sahita kara nimantrane. After hearing this from Gopinathacharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, first go to the place where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is staying and invite him here with his associates. Ask him on my account. Prasada ani tanre karaha age bhiksha paschat asi amare karayala siksha. Take Jagannath Prasad and first give it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. After that, come back here and teach me well. Oh, so he's being convinced now. Acharya Bhagine Pate Shalaka Bhattacharya Nindas Stuti Hashe Shiksha Karana Acharya. Gopinathacharya was the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Therefore, their relationship was very sweet and intimate. Under the circumstances, Gopinathacharya taught him by sometimes blaspheming him, sometimes praising him, and sometimes laughing at him. This had been going on for some time. Acharyara Siddhante Mukundera Haila Santosh Bhattacharya Bakshe Mani Haila Dukarosha. Srila Mukunda Das felt very satisfied to hear the conclusive statements of Gopinathacharya, but he became very unhappy and angry to hear the statements put forward by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Koshanira Stane Acharya Kaila Agaman Bhattacharya name tanre kaila nirmantrana. According to the instructions of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Gopinathacharya went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and invited him on the Bhattacharya's behalf. Vakunda Stitas Kahe Bhattacharya Kata Bhattacharya Ninda Kare Mane Pana Vyata. The Bhattacharya's statements were discussed before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gopinathacharya and Mukunda Datta disapproved of the Bhattacharya's statements because they caused mental pain. Shuni Mahaprabhu kahe aiche mat kaha ama prati Bhattacharya haya anugraha. Hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Do not speak like that. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has shown great affection and mercy towards me." Amara Sanyasa Dharma Chahena Rakite Vasalye Karuna Karena Ki Dosha Ihate. Out of paternal affection for me, he wanted to protect me and see that I follow the regulative principles of a sannyasi. What fault is there in this? Aradina Mahaprabhu Bhattacharya Sane Anande Karila Jagannatha Darshane. The next morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya together visited the temple of Lord Jagannath. Both of them were in a very pleasant mood. Bhattacharya Sange Tanre Mandira Aila Prabhure Asana Diya Apane Vasila. When they entered the temple, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya offered Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a seat, while he himself sat down on the floor out of due respect for a sannyasi. Vedanta Padaite Tabe Aramba Karila Sneha Bhakti Kari Kichu Prabhure Kahila. He then began to instruct Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on Vedanta philosophy, and out of affection and devotion, he spoke to the Lord as follows. Purport. The Vedanta or Brahma Sutra, written by Srila Vyasadeva, is a book studied by all advanced spiritual students, especially by the sannyasis of all religious communities, sampradayas. The sannyasis must read Vedanta Sutra to establish their final conclusions concerning Vedic knowledge. Here, of course, the Vedanta mentioned is the commentary of Sankaracharya, known as Shariraka Bhashya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya intended to convert Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was a Vaishnava sannyasi. He wanted to convert him into a Mayavadi sannyasi. He therefore made this arrangement to instruct him in Vedanta Sutra according to the Shariraka commentary of Sankaracharya. All the sannyasis of the Shankara Sampradaya enjoy seriously studying the Vedanta Sutra with the Shariraka Bhashya commentary. It is said, Vedanta Vakyeshu Sada Ramantaha. One should always enjoy the studies of the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is very complicated. It's sutras. The verses are very short, and you have to be very intelligent to understand anything of them. The Srimad Bhagavatam, the verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam are actually the purport to the Vedanta Sutra. That's what it is. So, and we need purports to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. So you imagine how difficult the Vedanta Sutra is. Vedanta Shravana E Sannyasira Dharma Nirantara Karatumi Vedanta Shravana. The Bhattacharya said, hearing the Vedanta philosophy is a sannyasi's main business. Therefore, without hesitation, you should study Vedanta philosophy, hearing it without cessation from a superior person. Prabhu kahe more tumi kara anugraha se kartavya tumi ye more kaha. Lord Chaitanya replied, you are very merciful to me, and therefore I think it is my duty to obey your order. Satadina paryanta aiche karena shravane balamanda nahi kahi vasi matra shune. Thus for 7 days continuously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu listened to the Vedanta philosophy expounded by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. However, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not say anything and did not indicate whether it was right or wrong. He simply sat there and listened to the Bhattacharya. Ashtama divase tanre puche sarvabhoma satadina karatumi vedanta shravana. On the 8th day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you have been listening to the Vedanta philosophy from me continuously for 7 days. Balamanda nahi kara monatari bhuja kina bhuja iha bhujite na pani. You have simply been listening, fixed in your silence. Since you do not say whether you think it is right or wrong, I cannot know whether you are actually understanding Vedanta philosophy or not. Prabhu kahe murka ami nahi ajayana tamara agyate matra kari ye shravana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, I am a fool, and consequently I do not study Vedanta Sutra. I am just trying to hear it from you because you have ordered me. Sannyasira dharma lage shravana matrakari tumiye arta kara bhujite na pari. Only for the sake of executing the duties of the renounced order of sannyas do I listen. Unfortunately, I cannot in the least understand the meaning you are presenting. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented him as if he were a sannyasi in name only, or in other words, a number one fool. Mayavadi sannyasis in India are very accustomed to declaring themselves Jagat Gurus, teachers of the world, although they have no information of the outside world, and they are limited in their experience to a small town or village, or perhaps to the country of India. Nor do such sannyasis have sufficient education. Unfortunately, at the present moment, there are many foolish sannyasis, both in India and elsewhere, who simply read and study Vedic literature without understanding the purports. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was having this discussion with the Chandkazi, the Mohammedan magistrate of Navadvip, he recited a verse from Vedic literature to the effect that the order of sannyas is prohibited in the age of Kali. Only those who are very serious and who follow the regulative principles and study Vedic literature should accept sannyas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approved of a sannyasi's reading Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra, but he did not approve the Shariraka commentary of Shankaracharya. Indeed, he said elsewhere, Mayavadi Vasha Shunile Haya Sarvasha. If one hears the Shariraka Vasha of Shankaracharya, he is doomed. Thus, a sannyasi, a transcendentalist, must read Vedanta Sutra regularly, but he should not read the Shariraka Vasha. This is the conclusion of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. The real commentary on Vedanta Sutra is Srimad Bhagavatam, the purport commentary. Arto Yan Brahma Sutranam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the original commentary on Vedanta Sutra written by the author himself, Srila Vyasadeva. Bhattacharya kahina bhuji hena jnanajar bhuji vara lage seha puche punar para. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, I accept that you do not understand. Yet, even one who does not understand inquires about the subject matter. Tumi shuni raha mona matradari hridaye ki ache tamara bhujite na pari. You are hearing again and again, yet you keep silent. I cannot understand what is actually within your mind. Prabhu kahe sutra arta bhujiye nirmala tamara vyakya shunimana haya ta vikala. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then revealed his mind, saying, I can understand the meaning of each sutra very clearly, but your explanations have simply agitated my mind. Purport. The factual meaning of the verses of Vedanta Sutra is as clear as sunshine. The Mayavadi philosophers simply try to cover this sunshine with clouds of interpretations imagined by Shankaracharya and his followers. Sutrera arta bhasha kahe prakashya tumi bhasha kaha sutrera arta acharya. The meaning of the verses of the Vedanta Sutra contain clear purports in themselves, but other purports you presented simply covered the meaning of the sutra like a cloud. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. Please refer to Adi Leela 7th chapter, verses 106 to 146 for an explanation of this verse. Okay, I don't have that volume here, so Adi Leela 7 and then verses 106 to 146. Sutrera mukya artana karaha vyakyana kapanarte tumi tata kara achadana. You do not explain the direct meaning of the Brahma Sutras. Indeed, it appears that your business is to cover the real meaning. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is typical of all Mayavadis or atheists who interpret the meaning of Vedic literature in their own imaginative way. The real purpose of such foolish people is to impose the impersonalist conclusion on all Vedic literature. The Mayavadi atheists also interpret Bhagavad Gita. In every verse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In every verse Vyasadeva says, Sri Bhagavanu Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, or the Blessed Lord said. It is clearly stated that the Blessed Lord is the Supreme Person, but the Mayavadi atheists still try to prove that the Absolute Truth is impersonal. In order to present their false imaginary meanings, they must adopt so much word jugglery and grammatical interpretation, and they finally become ludicrous. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remarked that no one should hear the Mayavadi commentaries or purports to any Vedic literature. You should not hear the Mayavadi conclusions. Upanishad Shabde Ye Mukhya Artha Haya Se Arte Mukhya Vyasa Sutre Sabahaya Kaya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, Vedanta Sutra is the summary of all the Upanishads. Therefore, whatever direct meaning is there in the Upanishads is also recorded in the Vedanta Sutra, or Vyasa Sutra, purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has explained the word Upanishad in his Anubhashya. Please refer to Adi Leela 2nd chapter, 5th verse, and Adi Leela 7th chapter, verses 106 and 108 for his explanation. Mukyarta Chariyakara Gunarti Kalpana Avida Vritta Charikara Shabdira Lakshana. For each verse, the direct meaning must be accepted without interpretation. However, you simply abandon the direct meaning and proceed with your imaginative interpretation. Pramanera Maje Shrute Pramana Pradana Shrutiye Mukyarte Kahe Se Pramana. Although there is other evidence, the evidence given in the Vedic version must be taken as foremost. Vedic versions understood directly are first-class evidence. Vedic versions understood directly are first-class evidence. It means without interpretation. Purport. Works that should be consulted are Srila Jiva Goswami's Tattva Sandarbha, 10 to 11, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana's commentary on that, and the following verses of the Brahma Sutra, Shastra Yonitvat, Tarka Pratishtanat, that's another Vedanta verse, Shrutes to Shabda Mulatvat, that's another verse from the Vedanta Sutra. As commented upon by Srila Ramanujacharya, Srila Madhvacharya, Sri Nimbarkacharya, and Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana. In his book, Sarva Sangvadini, Srila Jiva Goswami has noted that although there are 10 kinds of evidence, direct perception, the Vedic version, historical, these are the 10, I guess. Direct perception, the Vedic version, historical reference, hypothesis, and so on. And although they are generally accepted as evidence, the person presenting a hypothesis, reading the Vedic version, perceiving or interpreting by his experience, is certain to be imperfect in 4 ways. That is, he is subject to, these are the 4 defects we were talking about the other day, he is subject to commit mistakes, to become illusioned, to cheat, and to have imperfect senses. Although the evidence may be correct, the person himself is in danger of being misled due to his material defects. Apart from the direct perception, there is a chance that an interpretation may not be perfect. Therefore, the conclusion is that only a direct presentation can be considered as evidence. An interpretation cannot be accepted as evidence, but may be considered proof of evidence. An interpretation cannot be accepted as evidence, but may be considered proof of evidence. In Bhagavad Gita, at the very beginning, it is stated, Dhritarashtra uvacha dharmakshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamaka pandavaschaiva king akurvata sanjaya. The statements of the Bhagavad Gita are themselves proof that there is a place of religious pilgrimage named Kurukshetra, where the Pandavas and the Kurus met to fight. After meeting there, what did they do? This was Dhritarashtra's inquiry to Sanjaya. Although these statements are very clear, atheists try to interpret different meanings of the words Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami has warned us not to depend on any kind of interpretation. It is better to take the verses as they are without interpretation. Srila Prabhupada, in his books, his purports were called purports. If you look in the other Bhagavad Gita translations, they usually will say commentaries, and the actual our understanding of that, at least for those who are not giving proper information, is that commentary means their interpretation. It's their commentary. Purport means the actual meaning, the actual purport. Jivera asti vishta dues shankya gomaya shruti vakye se dui maha pavitra haya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, conch shells and cow dung are nothing but the bones and the stool of some living entities. But according to the Vedic version, they are both considered very pure. Purport. According to Vedic principles, bones and dung are generally considered very impure. If one touches a bone or stool, he must take bath immediately. That is the Vedic injunction. Yet, the Vedas also enjoin that a conch shell, although the bone of an animal, and cow dung, although the stool of an animal, are very sanctified. Even though such statements appear contradictory, we still accept the fact that conch shells and cow dung are pure and sanctified on the basis of the Vedic version. We use conch shells in deity service. It was really dirty, and the cow dung is used for cleaning. So actually, there's actually a what do they call it? But there's a kind of abhishek it's done all with products out from the cow. So of course you have milk, and you have yogurt, and you have ghee, and you have cow dung, and you have cow urine. So that are all considered pure because they come from the cow. Gavya, they call it Gavya Abhishek or something like that. Anyway, it's all those products. We don't usually do that one because it may not be appreciated by those who are taking the Charanamrita. But according to the Vedas, all these items are pure. Jai Shishi Gaur Nitai, Shishi Radha Vraj Vihari, Jagannath, Balaram, Lady Subhadra, Shingade Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Swata Pramana Veda Satya Satye Kaya Lakshana Karile Swata Pramanya Hanahaya. The Vedic statements are self-evident. Whatever is stated there must be accepted. If we interpret according to our own imagination, the authority of the Vedas is immediately lost. Purport. Out of the four types of evidence, direct perception, hypothesis, historical reference, and the Vedas, Vedic evidence is accepted as the foremost. If we want to interpret the Vedic version, we must imagine an interpretation according to what we want to do. First of all, we set forth such an interpretation as a suggestion or hypothesis. As such, it is not actually true, and the self-evident proof is lost. Srila Madhvacharya, commenting on the aphorism Drishyate 2, Vedanta Sutra 2.1.6, quotes the Bhavishya Purana as follows: Rigyaju Samatarvascha Bharatam Pancha Ratrikam Mula Ramayanam Chaiva Veda Ityeva Shabditaha Puranani Cha Yaniha Vaishnavi Vidu Swataha Pramanayam Etesham Natra Kinchid Vicharyate. The Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda, Mahabharata, Pancharatra, and original Ramayana are all considered Vedic literature. The Puranas, such as the Vaivarta Purana, Naradiya Purana, Vishnu Purana, and Bhagavat Purana, this is Srimad Bhagavatam, are especially meant for Vaishnavas and are also Vedic literature. As such, whatever is stated within the Puranas, the Mahabharata and Ramayana, is self-evident. There is no need for interpretation. Bhagavad Gita is also within the Mahabharata. Therefore, all the statements of Bhagavad Gita are self-evident. There's no need for interpretation. And if we do interpret, the entire authority of Vedic literature is lost. Bhagavad Gita as it is. But you have to be self-realized to actually get the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Otherwise, what we do is we guess because of our four kinds of defects, then our guessing will give us the wrong conclusion. Vyasa Sutrera Arta Yaiche Suryera Kinara Kirana Swa Kapite Vyasa Mega Kara Kare Achadana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, the Brahma Sutra compiled by Srila Vyasadeva is as radiant as the sun. One who tries to interpret its meaning simply covers the sunshine with a cloud. Veda Purane Kahe Brahma Nirupana Se Brahma Priyad Vastu Ishwara Lakshana. All Vedic literature and other literature that strictly follows the Vedic principles ascertain that the Supreme Brahman is the absolute truth, the greatest of all, and a feature of the Supreme Lord. Purport. The greatest of everything is Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa Sarver Ahang Eva Vejaha. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. That's chapter 15, verse 15. In In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the absolute truth is understood in three phases, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti shabdate. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the last word in understanding the absolute truth, Brahman. Sarvaishvarya Paripurna Swayam Bhagavan Tanre Nirakara Kari Karaha Vyakhyana. Actually, the Supreme Absolute Truth is a person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full with all opulences. You are trying to explain him as impersonal and formless. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is trying to explain the Mayavadi impersonalist view. Purport. Brahman means Brihatva, the greatest of all. The greatest of all is Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He possesses all potencies and opulence in full. Therefore, the absolute truth, the greatest of all, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whether one says Brahman or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the fact is the same. The fact is the same, for they are identical. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna accepted Krishna as Parang Brahma, Parang Dhamma. Although the living entities or material nature are sometimes described as Brahman, Param Brahman, the supreme, the greatest of all Brahmans, it is still Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is full with all opulences, and as such, he possesses all riches, all strength, all reputation, all knowledge, all beauty, and all renunciation. He is eternally a person and eternally supreme. If one tries to explain the Supreme impersonally, one distorts the real meaning of Brahman. Nirvishesha tanrekaye sutrigan prakrita nishede kare apakrita sapan. Wherever there is an impersonal description of the Vedas mean to establish that everything belonging to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental and free of mundane characteristics. Good. Purport. There are many impersonal statements about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in the Svetashvatara Upanishad, Apani Pado Jivano Pahita Ashatya Chakshu Sa Srinotya Karana Veti Vejan Na Cha Tashasti Veda Tang Ahor Agre Hang Purushang Mahantam. That's the Svetashvatara Upanishad 3.19. Although the Supreme Lord is described as having no hands and legs, he nonetheless accepts all sacrificial offerings. He has no eyes, yet he sees everything. He has no ears, yet he hears everything. Whenever it is stated that the Supreme Lord has no hands and legs, no one should think that he is impersonal. Rather, he has no mundane hands or legs like ours. He has no eyes, yet he sees. This means that he does not have mundane, limited eyes like ours. Rather, he has such eyes that he can see past, present, and future, everywhere, in every quarter of the universe, and in every corner of the heart of every living entity. Thus, the impersonal descriptions in the Vedas intend to deny mundane characteristics in the Supreme Lord they do not intend to establish the Supreme Lord as impersonal. On that point, it's interesting because Sankaracharya was an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Right? And Lord Shiva is sometimes called the greatest Vaishnava. So how can the greatest Vaishnava really teach impersonal philosophy? So what he did in his commentaries, he took verses like the ones that are being described here, the ones that kind of hint at impersonal, which Srila is explaining. That it's just to point out that the Lord's qualities are not mundane. No hands means no. He may have hands that look like this, but they're not limited like ours. He has eyes that they may look something like our eyes, or our eyes may look something like his eyes. Man is made in the image of God, they say. So his hands and legs and face there may be some resemblance there, but of course his body is completely transcendental and so on. So that's the reason for that kind of a verse. But what Sankaracharya did, he kept the same Vedanta Sutra, and then he wrote these very long, detailed purports explaining expanding on those kind of verses that hinted at something impersonal. So those who studied under him really got more the idea that he was that God, the Supreme Absolute Truth, was impersonal. But he did that because he was the link to go out of Buddhism, get the people to change from Buddha's idea, which rejected the Vedas, to accepting the Vedas, but to just go from Buddhist idea, which is voidist philosophy, to the supreme highest understanding, which of Krishna being the supreme personality of Godhead. It would be too much. No one would be able to relate to it. So his part in this transition was he got the people to to accept the Vedas again, because they were rejected. As Lord Buddha, they were rejected. But at the same time, he emphasized. He didn't deny the Vedas. He just emphasized those verses that could be interpreted more in an impersonal way, but still accepting the Vedas. So it was a transition. But then gradually over a long period of time, our Vaishnavacharyas, Ramanujacharya, and then Madhvacharya, and then Baladev Vidyabhushana more recently, and actually Lord Caitanya himself made it all perfect. Baladev Vidyabhushana came sometime after Lord Caitanya and completely accepted his philosophy, Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, one and different simultaneously. And in that way, the knowledge was gradually put back and made perfect. And as Srila Prabhupada, of course, wrote his purports, his translations and purports, and explained everything in a much more easy to understand way for us Westerners who can't even look at Vedanta Sutra. But that was the history. That's how things went from Buddhist philosophy, and Buddhism had to start when it did, because people were completely abusing the Vedic scriptures in the name of you could perform the sacrifice under this condition and that condition, and it was okay, but they forgot all the conditions and all the rules and all the reasoning behind it, and the temples were becoming like slaughterhouses, killing anything, anytime, just eating meat. People became completely addicted to eating meat. So that's when Lord Buddha came to save the poor animals that were being slaughtered like that, and of course to save the people who were really getting off the path. had really gotten off the path. But then all these over hundreds of years, all these other adjustments were made by the acharyas, starting with Sankaracharya, to gradually get the people back on the path of the Vaishnava path. And then so Srila Prabhupada is the conclusion of all that. Actually, it's getting late. Maybe I'll stop speaking now. Any questions, comments? Anyone? Anyone who's watching online, you can put in your comments now, or questions.
Actually, I bought a long time ago the Vedanta Sutra by Holiday. But it is super hard to read. I pick it up sometimes.
The Vedanta Sutra?
Yeah, by Holiday. He's the one that after Caitanya, he was Holiday.
Yeah, Baladev Vijayabhushana.
Yeah, so it's his commentary of the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. Like you mentioned, everybody in India has to have a Vedanta Sutra interpretation or something.
Yeah. Vedanta Sutra is important.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada never gave us directly the Vedanta Sutra, but he gave us the purport of that in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because the verses are very short, but they're full of meaning if you are able to understand them.
He did comment on the first couple of verses, which are like the Vedanta Sutra. Prabhupada mentioned a lot, like now it's time to acquire the first two verses.
Yes, the Tattva Brahmacharya. That's the conclusion, yeah. And sometimes the first verses of something, just like the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the first couple of verses, Janmadrishayaton Mayadi Tartas Chatesha Bhagyatsura, first verse, and then Dharma Projita Kaitavotra, that second verse. They both have the big verses and they've got long purports like that. So the other Acharyas sometimes did that too. They gave very long purports or commentaries. They called them commentaries, but they're still the actual meaning like that. So yes, that was a good observation.
And then the commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I always love the story of Sri Caitanya-caritamrta Class and the story of some of the Acharya who listen for 7 days, and then some of the Acharya inquires and then he comments or something, and then he goes into being humbled and correcting him, which I thought was, I always loved reading and I always loved hearing about it.
Yeah, that was Lord Chaitanya's way. And if we were in that position and somebody wanted to teach us, and we thought, okay, I'll listen until he asks me about it, and then we would have been convinced of Mayavadi philosophy. You can imagine sitting down for 7 days, all day, and hearing someone preach about Mayavadi philosophy, and then not being affected by it. But Lord Chaitanya, of course, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he was listening and listening and listening, and then when the time was right, then he responded, and as we'll find out in the upcoming verses, starting next week, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, they realized that, wow, I got it wrong all these years. Now I understand. And then after that, Lord Chaitanya, I think, reveals his Sadbhuj form, I believe, in front of him, the 6-armed form, shows him who he really is. Because all this started because his who was it? Gopinathacharya?
Brother?
Yeah. Gopinathacharya. Yeah. So he was it all this all the whole conference all this started when he's trying to convince Lord Chaitanya, convince Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that who Lord Chaitanya really is. They all understood that Lord Chaitanya is actually God, and he and his disciples were saying it's not possible. The supreme everything is impersonal. So that's where all this all started. But finally he'll realize that actually Lord Chaitanya is in fact the supreme personality of Godhead, and then when he does that and he surrenders to him, then Lord Chaitanya will reveal himself and show him who he actually is.
What is the combination of the six arms?
Yeah, there's two arms is like from Lord Chaitanya, and he's holding his staff, I think, and a water pot. Kamandalu, they call it Kamandalu. And then there's Lord Ramachandra arms, and he's holding a bow and an arrow. And then there's Krishna. Krishna must be playing a flute. So Sad Bhuja. Sad Bhuja means four-armed, six-armed. Sad or Sat, it means six, and Bhuja means like arms. Well, he showed himself. And I think with Ramananda Roy, it was showed himself. Well, here's Lord Chaitanya, and then here's Radha and Krishna appearing behind him. Showing that I believe so. Anyway, we'll find out. I don't recall exactly, but sometimes, and these are obviously very special personalities that had this kind of intimate darshan with Lord Chaitanya. They're not ordinary living entities. Usually when the Lord comes, then his devotees, even liberated devotees come, and sometimes they play the part of somebody who's not liberated for some purpose that supports the Lord's mission. Okay, so we'll end here. Wait a minute. Could you please explain in detail the cow's sacredness? The cow's sacredness. Well, the cow is considered. The cow is considered pure. At least the cow is at least the cow urine and cow stool, cow dung, are considered to be pure. It's just not much to explain. Except that this is what the Vedas say. Yeah. Also, cow is considered one of our mothers. There's 7 mothers. Yeah, and it's been some scientists have done experiments, and they've proven that cow dung and cow urine are actually antiseptic. They're not just that they're just clean or pure, but they can be used to clean. So you can actually take cow dung, mix it with some water, so it's so you can work with, and you clean the altar. There's even I mentioned there's even abhishek where you can use cow dung and cow urine and other ingredients for bathing the deities. There's also some kind of medicinal purposes for at least cow urine, things related to the kidneys or something. You could drink fresh cow urine, but mostly we accept this because this is the Vedic conclusion, And even though we may not understand it, or it may seem like kind of strange, but the Vedas say it, and we accept the Vedas as they are stated. There's so many statements that are given in the Vedas. Um, some of them are very controversial. If you talk to people out who don't accept the Vedas, like where the moon is, and if we went to the moon, and things like that. But we accept the Vedic version, and if we accept the Vedic version, then will always that'll be the perfection. That'll be the perfection, because the Vedas come directly from Krishna, and our version is as we were talking about the other day, is the inductive way. Material science hypothesis, and actually came up with a purport today. That you have some idea, you want to prove it, you make a hypothesis, like a theory, and then you figure out how to experiment, and then you come to some conclusion. That's the scientific method. Scientific method means that, or scientists say that you don't believe anything unless you could see it. You see it, you can hear it, you experiment with it. You can't accept anything as scientifically proved, unless somehow you can perceive it. But you can't directly perceive Krishna. So they say, this is not scientific. We're intelligent. We're not going to be foolish people and just accept that there's a God, or that the universe, that everything just came about because there's some creator. We have to figure out some other way to explain why things have come out. And the difficulty with that explanation, that way of thinking, is the conclusion will be that everything came about by accident, combination of some material elements, and things came about. And those who are pushing for that, the end result is they're trying to explain everything without any giving any credit to God. So if we can explain everything without God, and we can figure out all the problems of how to fix everything in the world without God, then either there's no God or we don't need him. And of course, if you don't believe in God or don't accept God, then human life is finished. I mean, it's already animal life, because the animals also don't accept any God. Okay, so I think we'll end here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening online. Hare Krishna.